What is up, Divergent friends? Happy New Year, and welcome to Cognitive Dissonance, the channel where we look at the insanity surrounding us. And damn, do I got some insanity for you today. Today, I want to talk about technological tyranny, how your thoughts will be used in a multitude of ways, and whether privacy of thought, as a basic human right, is being addressed in the onslaught of innovation that we are seeing on the tech front. How many times have you picked up your phone or logged onto your computer only to be shown an ad for something that you told yourself you needed to buy? From car insurance to freaking dog food. We've become kind of numb to the targeted ads that seem to infiltrate our everyday online experiences. I mean, sometimes we even have a general understanding of why we're being shown these specific things. Uh, Algorithms are developed by companies that spend millions of dollars siphoning up every bit of our personal data as we continually enter this stuff into the system. And, once a month, maybe we order a certain vitamin or pet food or whatever from Amazon. And then around that time every month, we start to see advertisements for those products or similar products across every platform that we visit. We let cookies be installed so that we can read certain publications, and suddenly the system knows what we read and what similar subjects might interest us. They know how long we spend reading it. They know how long our eyes linger on certain topics or pictures or whatever. They know what type of videos we watch and when. They know our political leanings. Platforms spend enormous amounts of money hiring people to feed us this neural stimuli that is similar to the stuff that we get in casinos. I mean, they know where you go, they know what you eat, what you wear, they know who you talk to. They know you better than you know you. And at this point, most of us have become somewhat comfortable handing over our information for, a variety of reasons, from simple convenience to wanting to access a site or an app for free. We accept that it's kind of a trade-off at this point. Um, I mean, how much farther could it possibly go, right? So, what happens when your smart fridge isn't just reminding you that you need milk, right? What happens when it's actually reporting the contents of your fridge to your health insurance carrier so that they can determine if they should continue coverage or not? Or if you're adhering to some diet that your doctor put you on? What happens when you're not hired for a job that you want because you go to the bar every night? And they know that because of your spending patterns. Or what happens when you can't buy a gun because you took antidepressants in 2005? I wish I could tell you I was kidding. Um, I'm not. You've probably heard of Neuralink or the Chinese social credit score, but have you heard the term HARPA? Do you know what V2K is? You're probably familiar with the term Internet of Things, right? You're probably familiar with the term Internet of Things, but how much do you know about brain to computer interfaces? And will you be considered a part of the Internet of Things? Do you truly believe that contact tracing is just for this specific virus? How often do governments implement these kind of programs and then desist? I can tell you the answer to that question is freaking never, right? So are we just talking about super clever predictive algorithms, or does Facebook actually want to read your mind, right? The answer to that might surprise you. And before I show you some of the information that I have for you today, let me bring something else to your attention. There are no laws anywhere that consider privacy of thought a basic human right. That's a problem for me. For those of you that have been following me, you've probably heard me use this breakdown before, but just stick with me. Typically, with new technologies, we tend to legislate after the fact. I use cars all the time as an example. Once cars caught on and public interest grew and private ownership increased, um, roads were built, whatever, we saw legislation evolve accordingly. Okay. Um, Government saw problem areas and addressed it. But with emerging technology like AI, for example, or some of these mind intrusive technologies that I'm going to talk about, these things need preemptive legislation. You can't put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. And when we're talking about technology that interacts with the human brain, this is doubly so. As Americans, we fret and talk a lot about freedom of speech. But what about freedom of thought or privacy of thought? Are these not also basic human rights? Because I got to tell you, some of this tech makes ingsoc look like freaking child's play, right? So I want to go into this with you guys a little bit. Um, this is something that I've been keeping an eye on for a long time, but just to kind of show you what they already have now. And this is, like I mentioned, the Chinese social credit score. I want to show you what is going on over there so that you can kind of look around you and see where this might be applicable in your life. Because please don't think that the companies that are developing these technologies, companies like Google, that they're just going to stop with China, right? China is a beta test. China is a beta test. And although it may be a little bit harder in our particular culture, they are doing what David Icke calls the totalitarian tiptoe, right? It's a slippery freaking slope, people. Um, Take a look.
Everywhere she goes, Ouyang Haoyu is followed. What she buys, how she behaves, is tracked and scored to show how responsible and trustworthy she is. It's called the social credit system, and in one version now being tested, a person's reputation is scored on a scale of 350 to 950. And Haoyu, with a good score of 752, is okay with it. In fact, most people are.
It's a mechanism like pushes you to become a better citizen.
It's big data meets Big Brother, expanding how the government monitors, understands, and ultimately controls its 1.4 billion citizens. Thanks to advances in artificial intelligence and facial recognition, and a web of more than 200 million surveillance cameras.
Are people bothered by privacy concerns?
We think the lot of camera keep the safety is really good. We can accept it.
Companies are experimenting with the algorithms to help the government create the new national social credit system. The government also has pilot projects. In one, citizens are required to do hours of unpaid work to get benefits. And scores are docked for things like littering, a messy yard, gossip, even jaywalking. Video of offenders is shown on the local news. And information collectors like Zhou Ai are paid to report on their neighbors. Her quota, 10 entries a month. Like the man who carried a drunk person home. A good deed, she says. Good social credit gets rewarded with perks like cheap loans and travel deals. But a bad score means public shame and worse. Huang Huijun lost a court case and didn't pay. Now he's on a government blacklist. I can't buy airplane or train tickets, he says. And the list goes on. Being discredited makes it hard to get a job or put kids in top schools. The social credit system will go nationwide next year, and few here are willing to criticize it. Something that may pose a risk itself for a bad score and the life that comes with it.
That's crazy. And you think that that's not already happening here now? How many of you guys saw the video that I caught it on Twitter today of the Canadian family who was snitched on by their neighbor because they had 6 people at their house. And when the family tried to resist, including the old, I don't know if it was his mother or grandmother, she had to be about 80 or 90 years old. When they tried to resist, they drugged the man out of his house and arrested him anyway. Most of the cops weren't wearing masks, right? But the neighbor told on him. It just wasn't safe. And you notice how that guy said, "Oh, it makes us safe, so we'll accept it." I mean, I know it's a tired adage that people use all the time, but it couldn't be more true in this case. When you give up safety, what is it? When you give up safety for security, you end up with neither. Or when you give up freedom for security and safety, you end up with neither. That's what it is. My bad. But you get my point. Like this stuff is next level. And like I said, China is the beta test, right? So I mean, that's basically something you see, okay, all right, you're being monitored. The algorithms are watching. They've got people watching and people tracking and there is somewhat of a human element to this. But what about genuine genuine mind reading tech? Now, I know that sounds totally freaking tinfoil, right? I mean, I am loyal to the foil. I'm all about my tinfoil hat. But man, if 2020 didn't show us that we are so far out of the realm of science fiction now, that this stuff is science fact, and if you can't buy that now, I don't know what to tell you. But check this out. And this is from 2019, right? I had originally posted it in a thread that I did on invasive mind control tech. Imagine that on Twitter. But this is from 2019. And now we saw over the last year that Elon Musk successfully demonstrated the interaction of the Neuralink device in the pigs. Human testing is slated for this year. And I mean, in the end, he plans on rolling this out with a procedure that's supposed to be simple enough you could get it done in a mall, at a mall, little mall kiosk or whatever. I mean, like, he wants to make this widely available. Yes, they bill it as something that could help with, a variety of neurological impairments, but he admits that's not where he's really going with this. That's just a benefit, right? Now, mind you, anything connected to the internet can be hacked. And if you're comfortable with them hacking your brain, good luck with that. Good luck with that. But it's crazier than that. Did you know that there were scientists at UCFS that did a brain activity study that was, of course, backed by Facebook, that showed that it was possible to use brainwave technology to decode speech, right? Did you know that in 2018, Nissan unveiled a brain to vehicle technology that would allow vehicles to interpret signals from the driver's brain, and that Nielsen, yes, the ratings company, right? Nielsen was already using neuroscience to capture non conscious aspects of consumer decision making. That's why sometimes things can tell you what you want to buy before you even know what you want to buy. They know what you want to watch before you know what you want to watch. And I mean, of course, they bill it, there are therapeutic reasons. Of course, there are non-therapeutic reasons why people are interested in trying to figure out how to decode the brain. And I'll give you an example. I mean, it was known a while ago that they could use a fairly simple technology like fMRI to determine if you were lying or not. Kind of a primitive lie detector, right? If you are telling a lie, your brain, a different part of your brain is going to light up when they've got you connected, right? Than if you are drawing from memory. If you're creating something, it lights up a different part of your brain than if you're drawing from memory. Well, that was years ago. They've really got this down. They've got the science down to where they have mapped out your synaptic pathways to the point that they have every possible combinations of thought mapped. There are programs, and I'm not even kidding you, that can tell you what song you're listening to just by your synaptic pathways flaring up when they're being monitored. They know. It's crazy. It's crazy. You can see they're talking about government-backed surveillance projects that are deploying brain-reading technology to detect changes in emotional states in employees on a production line, right? The military at the helm of high-speed trains. Now you might think, okay, all right, well, military, yeah, okay, we need to know what's going on there. If they're flying an airplane, maybe. If they're driving a freaking high-speed train, maybe, right? But I mean, does it end there? Does it end there? There was a TED talk given by a woman named Nita Farahani that basically explained that there were no safeguards in place to protect against the inappropriate use of this data. So let me ask you this. So a company has this data and they use it to determine whether or not a guy flying a plane is overly tired. Well, they already have the tech. I mean, what's to stop them from slapping it on a potential new hire? What do you really need an interview for if they could just quickly scan your brain and tell you if you're the kind of person they're looking for? Are you honest? Are you hardworking? Are you going to put the company above yourself? Whatever it is. I mean, like I said, this stuff needs to be preemptively legislated. And I'm not even just talking about in other countries, right? I don't know how many of you guys remember this, but there were several mass shootings in 2019. Yeah, 2019. That had prompted, every time there's a slew of these incidents, it prompts these outcries for more extreme gun control measures. And at the time, an idea was thrown out there for a program called HARPA. Okay, now most of you guys have probably heard DARPA, which is the mad scientists of the defense, of the defense industry. Those guys are nuts. But this idea for HARPA, which naturally they billed as Trump's plan, was actually being pushed by Ivanka, right? And HARPA basically is the Health Advanced Research Projects Agency, right? And what they wanted to do was use your smartphone and your behaviors. They wanted to be able to intuit from your phone whether or not you were stable enough to buy a gun, right? Now this didn't go anywhere, thank God, but please don't think that these people do not have a platform to push these programs, right? And depending on what happens this month, mind you, this is January of 2021, we could really see this kind of issue being pushed again if we end up with a Biden administration, right? I mean, can you imagine? You thought I was joking when I said about not being able to buy a gun because of previous prescriptions you were given. I wasn't. I mean, they really put a lot of work into this. I mean, maybe the platform just wasn't developed enough yet that you know, they felt comfortable pushing it to the public. I mean, who knows what they've done with it now. But this is not new. There are literally hundreds, hundreds of patents that have been filed, and I mean from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the early 90s, that are all pertinent patents for mind control technology. And what I'm going to do is when I get done recording this, I'm going to go ahead and link this article down below. That way, if you guys want to go check it out, you can, because a lot of them are listed here. But I mean, you can, as in the 60s, the freaking CIA was using microwaves to activate technology that they had implanted in people. I mean, that's not a conspiracy theory or a joke. It's real. And I'm not even going to bring up, I know you can see what's on my screen here. These towers, I don't even want to say the word. Lord knows the algorithms are listening. But these kind of technologies can be extremely freaking dangerous. Take a listen.
Working in conjunction with a team of doctors in Boston, Dr. Delgado experimented on neurological patients to develop a treatment to scientifically disarm violent behavior. Doctors Vernon Mark and Frank Irvin were emerging stars on the psychosurgery scene, with claims that ghetto rioters were just the beginning, that millions could be suffering from some ambiguous, undiagnosed brain disease and turn violent, despite the fact that the brain remained little understood in its complex, interrelated functions.
Each patient wears a stimoceiver, which receives a signal via radio that stimulates electrodes in the brain. Meanwhile, electrical signals of brain activity are sent back by telemetry, while the patient moves freely through the hospital ward.
It can't be missed that this work was the logical progression of the CIA's MKUltra Subproject 94 for the, quote, continuation of investigations on the remote directional control of activities in selected species of animals through miniaturized stimulating electrode implants in specific brain center areas.
Miniaturized electrical stimulus implants that would have electrical stimulus in certain areas of the brain in certain animals. I wonder what animals they're talking about. I mean, this particular project was in the freaking 60s. If you have not seen the documentary The Minds of Men, you really need to go watch it. She does a really good breakdown of the development of the MK Ultra program, Project Monarch. I mean, she really did her homework with that. But we can see now how these old experiments have been brought to the forefront now. How they laid the cornerstones for a lot of the projects that we're seeing today. And like I said, I'm gonna post this article below. I mean, if you want to go check out everything from chemtrails and smart dust to freaking voice of God tech, it's in here. It's in here, and you can see a lot of these. Like I said, these are old. These are older patents. What do you think they have now? A lot of these didn't even require any kind of direct implants. Did you know that they were able to alter moods just with what you the pulses, the visual stimulus that was coming from TVs? Like, I mean, it's that serious. Apparatus for remotely altering and monitoring brain waves. I mean, it's freaking nuts. And people think, talking about, I mean, it's not like MK Ultra is a conspiracy theory. I mean, that stuff was documented, right? Well, now we've got the geniuses at DARPA that have continued with this. I mean, they've really continued with this. I go off on my Twitter account all the time about DARPA's Subnets program and their N3 program and what that is and what it means. So Barack Obama had implemented something that he called the White House Brain Initiative, and he gave a lot of funding to these basically programs that lead to straight neural manipulation. I mean, I don't know what else you want to call it. Of course, they bill it that it's, therapeutic. We can fix mood disorders. Well, what else can you do? Do you even need an implant for that, right? I mean, the Subnets program, is ongoing, right? This is an ongoing thing. They're trying to figure out how to alter your mood in a variety of ways, and some of these things don't even require implants, right? I came across something recently that was freaking terrifying about something called dreads. It's when they use designer drugs to activate different receptors in your brain, and depending on what they program these things to do, they can program you to do things as well. And it's not, like I said, it's not science fiction. Check this out.
This was actually having one animal learn something and seeing and recording that activity and put it into the sensory cortex of the second animal, and that animal acquires the knowledge.
This is a speech being given at West Point, the military academy, given to cadets and faculty, right, by a highly respected doctor. Just keep listening.
From the human drone technology standpoint, you can attach the human brain to another human brain. You can direct motor activity, or you can send communication and information. Dr. Ventnor's work is, my view, the equivalent of the development of nuclear weapons when you realize that he created life in a cell. He programmed yeast cells to produce anything he wanted. These can be inserted into you through the hypospray needles. You put in a specific gene slicing, you program what you like, you put it in the cell, and it can reproduce and make as much as you like. It sends a signal and tells which portion of the DNA should unwrap, unfold, and produce a product. Related to this is an idea called DREADs. These are designer receptors that can be remotely controlled. You can create a cell, you can put it somewhere in the body, and you can remotely activate it. So you have the capacity to create any product, as long as you know the DNA sequence. You can insert it into a living system, and you can remotely control it. That may affect the way you think, the way you act. So once you know that the technology is there to edit, splice, and program a cell, and the technology currently exists to administer it to somebody and have it go park anywhere you program it to go park, proliferate, and do its function, you can have things activated in other people's brains. Just people have figured out how to hide imagery in the DNA of bacteria. You can have the information reproduced in a string form as a form of a protein. The new way to hide information is going to be in DNA. This is the first experiment showing what imagery you can hide in bacteria. This is the latest. It's a GIF file. Well, this is what the Chinese are doing with DNA. Merging DNA systems with quantum computing will be really quite an amazing and both lethal threat. The next thing I wanted to mention to you is memory. Can we erase memory? Can we modify memory? Can we change memory? The short answer is yes. This is actually having one animal learn something and seeing and record.
So that's crazy. That's crazy. I've seen, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term neurocapitalism, but I've seen companies that are planning on being able to sell you basically dream files that you can download for while you're sleeping. Or if you want to experience something, a memory from something that you never did, you'll be able to buy these memories to experience on your own. It's really just a manipulation of the electrochemical and synaptic patterns in your brain. I mean, it's really not that far-fetched. Like he said, they can erase memories, they can implant memories. I mean, where else does this go? What happens when somebody is accused of a murder and for some reason they remember doing this, but it wasn't really them? I mean, how far do you think these people will go with this? You know, just because we can do something does not mean that we should. And I'm going to put this article in the description below as well. This is a peer-reviewed article, basically explaining what they call chemogenetics, the use of dreads in an attempt to deconstruct behavior and to be able to manipulate potential human behaviors by the use of these chemicals that, as he said, can be introduced in any number of ways. I mean, it's nuts. And something else that just kind of drives me nuts from the mad scientists at DARPA, something else I mentioned, the N3 program. This is direct brain to computer interface interaction, right? Now, you heard the guy in the video a minute ago mention human drones, where you could connect one brain to another brain to allow, the initial person to control the behaviors of a secondary person, right? That's freaking nuts. Well, we're also not that far off. I mean, he says that this exists now. I mean, he's giving the speech at freaking West Point. So I would imagine he's not walking in there with theories. And he did say about Dr. Vettner, if you have some time, go look into his research. It's freaking nuts. So what they do have now and that they plan on using, of course, they bill it as having potential therapeutic uses, but of course it ends up being used with military application, is a way to connect the human brain to UAVs, to drones, right? To be able to control, I mean, the bandwidth problem that we have when we make a decision to translate that decision into a motion, to input that motion into a controller when they're flying these drones or initiating these strikes or whatever. Now, mind you, a lot of this stuff is going to be controlled um, almost specifically by AI that's going to be allowed to make these decisions on its own. If you watch Space Force News on Sundays, you know I was just talking about the artificial intelligence co-pilot on our next generation stealth jet, the R2D2 as they call it, right? Well, they also want to use a brain to computer interface to interact with drones, with attack drones, and probably not just attack drones. This was written in 2018, and of course they were talking specifically about drones, but now they've actually perfected the tech, and they have it. It's actionable, it's functional, it works. Um, from 2018 till now, they were able to come up with this brain to computer interface where they can control not just drones but robotics also. I mean, this is next gen warfare, right? Um, it's just, it's getting crazier every day. Now, what they're talking about in this article is something called the Battelle system, which is based on nanoparticles. And you guys that are all about the smart dust and chemtrails and stuff, you're going to love this, right? Because the way that this works is the nanoparticles, the Battelle system is based on the nanoparticles. It uses electromagnetic properties to gather and communicate data to a wearer of a device, right? The magnetic core of the particles would convert the neural electrical signals in the brain into magnetic ones that could be sent through the skull to the helmet-based transceiver worn by the user. The helmet transceiver could also send magnetic signals back to the particles where they would be converted into electrical impulses capable of being processed by the neurons, thus enabling two-way communication to and from the brain. Okay? Now, it says Battelle's nanoparticles will be injected into a vein or inhaled, and from there can be moved to the brain by a magnetic field. I tend to focus on the tinfoil related subjects. So when I see something about, inhalable nanoparticles, it definitely makes me wonder, right? Here's something else. If you've been following my videos or if you follow me on Twitter, you know that my new favorite person to hate right now is Klaus Schwab. This guy is the poster boy for the World Economic Forum, and he has suggested some truly heinous things. And I'm not even just talking about his whole Great Reset shenanigans. He wrote a book. Now, I went over his book about the Great Reset, but he also wrote another book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution, where he's talking about the rise of the technocracy, right? The scientific elite that are going to make all the decisions and everything's going to be based on science, because that shit works. And he really suggested that not only do we need these digital health passes to travel, as we're seeing, you're getting your cards if you're taking your injections, you're going to get your card stamped that you're official. Well, I mean, you don't think they're going to leave it with the cards. They're going to make it digital, right? But he also suggested risk assessment brain scans. I'm not even kidding. Not even kidding, right? And to assess your ability to cross borders, and he wants to implant chips to read people's thoughts. I mean, believe me when I tell you that the stuff that people laughed at 40 years ago is now coming to fruition. This is not science fiction anymore. This is not science fiction anymore. I mean, this isn't just some restructuring of an economic system that these people want to implement. They want to change every aspect of your lives. Believe me when I tell you. And they have a plan and the means to do so. If we stay silent, if we don't stand up. You know me, my mantra, I never trust Skynet, man. Anything, this is all of it. All of it. I don't trust it. I want nothing to do with it. Like, so yeah, this shit is crazy, you guys. But that's what I got for you today. Before I let you go, please remember that you can follow me on Twitter You can also find me on DLive and Parlor. Obviously, my links are on my YouTube banner. You can donate to support the stream. A little bit goes a long way, guys, and everything helps. You can go directly to loyaltothefoil.com and donate, or if you're catching this live, feel free to super chat. And if you haven't checked out my Space Force News show on Sunday on YouTube's 1 Foot in 5D with my awesome co-host Alara of Sirius, please do that. That show is a ton of fun. We have great laughs. Um, Stay loyal.